The Rankin County, Mississippi Goon Squad, so-called Goon Squad, has finally gone down. Thank God they have finally gone down. Thank courageous people that they have finally gone down. But there are many others out here like them. And that's the terrifying thing about it. Let's talk about this, y'all. Let's talk about this. Y'all know this type of shit hits home, not only because of where it is, but also because of my life experience. So let's talk about this. But before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I am your homeboy first, and this is the realest, most entertaining show in the game. Put it on something. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that share button, and put all your people on it. I'd like to read this article to y'all. Okay? Please bear with me. But I would like to read this article to y'all. Okay? So whether you're driving, whether you're at work listening, whether you're viewing at home, please bear with me. I think that this information is very important to give you a full picture of the evil of the so-called Goon Squad and why we must be vigilant and we must be mindful. We must be aware. That's probably just the tip of the iceberg. Not only here, but across this nation. This article comes from Mississippi Today. It's a great paper to follow, y'all. I know in this digital era, everything's going online, so they do their thing online as well. I follow them on Twitter. Okay, you can just Google them. All right, they do good work, do great work, goddamn it. Okay, most of the information I've shared with y'all about the whole Brett Favre saga, the welfare scandal, came from Mississippi Today. Okay, and like I said, this article comes from them as well. Okay, this article is by Nate Rosenfeld and Mr. Jerry Mitchell. Jerry Mitchell is another good follow on Twitter. Check him out. Okay. Says Goon Squad officer is sentenced to 20 years in Mississippi torture cases. And this is from March 19th. Okay. Says one of 6 former law enforcement officers who called themselves the Goon Squad was sentenced to 20 years in prison on Tuesday, months after he and his co-defendants pleaded guilty to federal civil rights offenses for torturing and sexually assaulting 2 black men and a third white man who has remained anonymous until now. Hunter Elwood, the deputy who shot one of the victims in the mouth, received the maximum penalty allowed under his plea agreement with federal prosecutors. Mr. Elwood broke down in tears as he stood before a U.S. District Court Judge, Tom Lee, and apologized to the victims and their family members. Mr. Elwood turned to face Eddie Parker, 36, and Michael Jenkins, 33, who were tortured and sexually assaulted by the officers during a raid on Mr. Parker's home. I hate that I was involved in this, he said. I hate what's happened to them. Motherfucker, you did it! As Mr. Elwood left the podium, Mr. Parker stood up and said that he forgave him. That's the Christian thing to do. I'm non-religious. I believe deeply in God, but I don't follow any organized religion by man. So I'm assuming Mr. Parker's a Christian. He did the Christian thing. I don't forgive that motherfucker for what he did. He didn't even do it to me. Fuck him. During the hearing, Mr. Elwood said that he had witnessed brutal conduct by other deputies throughout his 7 years at the department, which his lawyer, Joe Holloman, said was the quote unquote culture of Rankin County Sheriff's Department. So let's pause right there. See, that shit right there, that paragraph right there is why I need you publications throughout the country. I think I saw CNN had a headline, 6 rogue officers. Fuck that shit, dog. When you say rogue, you're making it seem like they did something outside of the culture, that they did something abnormal. When this shit right here from one of the goddamn deputies said, no, that was what they did there. That was the culture of Rankin County Sheriff's Department. Seemed like to be a rogue cop in Rankin County Sheriff's Department would be to do the right thing. That's going rogue in their book. When your ass actually protect and serve, that's going rogue then, based on what this shit says. That ain't first talking, that's this motherfucker here talking. That's Mr. Elwood talking. That's his lawyer talking. Fuck we talking about. Y'all national publications, do better now. Do better. I continue. Well, it continues. Outside the courtroom, Mr. Jenkins, the man Mr. Elwood shot in the face during what was described as a mock execution, said that he did not forgive Mr. Elwood. I agree with that, Mr. Jenkins. If he wouldn't have gotten caught, he would still be doing the same thing, Mr. Jenkins said. He ain't lying. Both men said they were satisfied with Judge Lee's sentence. Then it goes to talk about what was going to transpire over the next few days. And I think since then, the other perpetrators have been sentenced as well. Okay. So I skip over that part and let's move on down. It says the Sheriff's Department in Rankin County, a suburban community just outside Jackson, came to national attention last year after 5 Rankin County deputies and a Richland police detective raided the home of Eddie Parker, 36, and his friend Michael Jenkins, 33, following a tip about suspicious activity. The officers handcuffed, look at the evil of this shit now, y'all. The officers handcuffed and tortured the men by shocking them repeatedly with tasers, beating them, and sexually assaulting them with a sex toy. What the fuck is wrong with these motherfuckers, dog? What kind of evil ass nasty boys are y'all, dog? Mr. Elwood put his gun into Mr. Jenkins' mouth and shot him, shattering his jaw and nearly killing him. They tried to take my manhood away from me, Mr. Jenkins said in a statement to the court on Tuesday morning. I don't ever think I'll be the person I was. The officers destroyed evidence. Now, look at this shit now. For you motherfuckers out here that think the police always doing shit right, your ass been watching all this propaganda shows and shit, okay, and thinking they doing shit right. Look at this now. The officers destroyed evidence, and to justify the shooting, falsely claimed that Mr. Jenkins had pointed a BB gun at them, according to federal prosecutors. These motherfuckers will come up with shit to justify their actions. I've told y'all this before. You've been following me for a while. A black cop, I witnessed a black cop in the barbershop when I was younger, much younger. I was a child. He said, or was I a child? I might not have been a child. So this might have been in my 20s. I think this was in my 20s. Whatever the case, whenever it was, I was either a teen or I was in my 20s. But that motherfucker said this. He was talking about if a teacher at his daughter's school tried to talk to his daughter and what he would do to that teacher, which is an understandable feeling. The next thing he said was not understandable. He said, when I go up there to that school, whatever I do not gonna be legal. But when I write it up and turn it in to my boss, it will be legal. That's the type of shit these motherfuckers on. That's that culture. Now, was a black cop in Canton, Mississippi saying that. Now, I don't know if he was Canton Police Department I don't know if he worked for the Camden Police Department. I don't know if he worked for Madison County Sheriff Department, but that son bitch said that, and that was a black man. So it seems like there's a lot of cops just think that that's the way to go. I can do whatever the fuck I want to do, as long as I write that shit up correctly. That's that bullshit I be talking about. That's that bullshit that a lot of people out here don't think exists. Clearly it does. The article continues. 3 of the department's deputies also pleaded guilty in a separate incident, but prosecutors have so far provided few details about what happened. Prosecutors are expected to read a statement written by the victim in that case, 28-year-old Alan Schmidt. So far, charges against officers in Rankin County have been narrowly focused on these 2 incidents, but residents in impoverished pockets of the county say that the sheriff's department has routinely targeted them with similar levels of violence. Last November, the New York Times and Mississippi Today published an investigation revealing that for nearly 2 decades, deputies in the Rankin Sheriff Department, many of whom called themselves the Goon Squad, would barge into homes in the middle of the night, handcuff people, and torture them for information or confessions. In the pursuit of drug arrests, the deputies rammed a stick down one man's throat until he vomited, dripped molten metal onto another man's skin, and held people down and beat them until they were bloody and bruised. According to dozens of people who said they witnessed or experienced the raids. It's some evil shit. Many of those who said they had experienced violence filed lawsuits or formal complaints, detailing their encounters with the department. A few said they had contacted Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey directly, only to be ignored. Sheriff Bailey, who has denied knowledge of the incidents, has faced calls to resign by local activists and the NAACP. He has said he will not step down. Malcolm Holmes, a professor in the Department of Criminal Justice and Sociology at the University of Wyoming, said that the Goon Squad case was going to be one that finds its way into the chronicles of history. There we go again, Mississippi. Here we go again. This is the kind of shit that be having all these motherfuckers from around the country saying what they be saying, and all these states got a Goon Squad. But there it is again, just somewhere you attach Mississippi to that bitch. We've done a lot of shit in this state to earn this reputation. Or I shouldn't say we. The fuck boys and bitches have done a lot to earn their reputation. You feel me? They have. They have. The article continues. There's so much well-documented evidence that this is a pattern of behavior, he said, noting that the case reveals something we've covered up for a long time, particularly in rural America. Skipping down a little bit. In an interview with the Times and Mississippi Today last week, Mr. Schmidt spoke publicly for the first time about what happened in December 2022 when a Rankin County deputy pulled him over for driving with an expired tag. Now, this is a white man now. According to the federal indictment, deputies Christian Dedman, Hunter Elward, and Daniel Opdyke, we're going to try that, arrived at the scene shortly afterward. 2 other deputies, including the one who pulled Mr. Schmidt over, were also present throughout the arrest, Mr. Schmidt said. Neither has been criminally charged. Mr. Schmidt said the deputies accused him of stealing tools from his boss. And then Mr. Dedman pressed a gun to his head and fired it into the air before threatening to dump his body in the Pearl River. I thought this was it, Mr. Schmidt said. I'm never going to see my family again. Mr. Dedman and the other deputies punched Mr. Schmidt and held his arm in a fire ant heel, then shocked him repeatedly with a taser, Mr. Schmidt said. Mr. Deadman also pressed his genitals against the man's face and bare buttocks as he yelled for help and kicked at the deputy, Mr. Schmidt said. It still goes through my head constantly, Mr. Schmidt said of the experience. That name Deadman should be familiar to y'all. I was about to say if you from Mississippi, hell, but the shit I'm finna talk about made national news as well. Oh boy. See, there it was a Deadman from Rankin County who was one of those evil young people who would say, let's go to Jaffrica, talking about Jackson. Let's go to Jaffrica and F with some N words. That's what they would say. And they end up murdering a man. This man was two of my former students, kinfolk. That man was Mr. James Craig Anderson. Just was minding his business. Just happened to be black and happened to be in Jackson. And these little evil motherfuckers would routinely just come to Jackson to fuck with black people that they saw as vulnerable. And they killed this man. One of those perpetrators was a young man whose last name was Deadman. So it seemed like that family got this shit honest. Seemed like they got this shit honest. That's what it seems like. I wouldn't want to judge an entire family by what two of them have done. But hell, you learn these behaviors somewhere. I ain't saying the whole family is like that. But obviously, some motherfuckers in that family have gone awry. The article goes on to say Rankin County District Attorney Bubba Bramlett has begun to review and dismiss criminal cases that had involved Goon Squad members. His office confirmed last week. But Mr. Bramlett declined to share details about the cases under review. State lawmakers introduced a bill in January that would expand oversight of Mississippi law enforcement, allowing the state board that certifies officers to investigate and revoke the licenses of officers accused of misconduct, regardless of whether they are criminally charged. Lawmakers have said that the Goon Squad and several other incidents of alleged police misconduct in Mississippi helped prompt the bill. The Mississippi House of Representatives overwhelmingly voted to pass the bill last week. The state Senate is expected to vote on the measure in the coming weeks. Let's make sure we monitor that bill and see what old Tate Reeves does if it reaches his desk. That was it's hard to read, y'all. It's hard to read. But we needed to do that. We did. Because I don't know if everyone has gotten a full idea of how evil those motherfuckers are. So you see the news clips and everything like that, but it's only so much they can get into that little segment on Channel 12 News, Channel 16 News. You know what I'm talking about? So I wanted to read that to y'all. And I want to warn you, tell you to be careful out there. Be careful. Because those were not road cops. Unfortunately, there's a culture here and throughout this country where you have some white supremacists who just think that uh, they can take their beliefs and put on a uniform and they can act act out what the Ku Klux Klan used to do and other various white supremacist terrorist organizations. That's what those men are. They're terrorists. They are fucking terrorists. Terrorists who Rankin County citizens were paying for. Ain't that a bitch? Funding terrorism. You think you just paying your taxes, you know what I'm talking about, for your basic shit, your firefighters, your police, and all that kind of shit, your school system, but you don't expect to be, well, at least I hope you don't expect to be funding terrorism. But that's what that was. And we must continue to root it out and call the evil out for what it is. I've said before, I am not anti-police. I am anti-police corruption. I am anti-police violence. I am not one of these motherfuckers who says defund the police. I say increase the pay for police, but also increase what it takes to become a police officer. They got to increase. It's not gonna be a utopia. You're never gonna root out all of the evil motherfuckers. But if you increase the pay and increase the rigor and what it takes to be a police officer, hopefully increase the standards. Hopefully we can root out some of these evil bastards who want to put on that badge and carry out terrorist acts. So God bless those brothers who endured that torture. And God bless their families. And I thank God for these investigative journalists who do a good job of bringing some of this shit to light as well. Put it on some.
Please subscribe to my daddy's YouTube channel because the more subscribers he gets, the more attractive he looks to sponsors. The more attractive he looks to sponsors, the more money he can make. And the more money he can make, the more money he can spend on me.